The crystal towers of Valara Prime shook as another alarm screamed across the planet. In the Grand Council chamber, beings from across the galaxy gathered in panic. Their beautiful blue and silver faces showed terror that had never been seen before. Council Prime Veltar stood at the center of the room. His tall, elegant form trembled as he watched the holographic displays. Red dots spread across the star map like a disease. Each dot meant another dead world, another billion lives lost. "The reports keep coming in," said General Kexera, his voice breaking. "The Zorani home fleet is gone. 12,000 ships. They lasted 3 hours." The chamber fell silent. The Zorani had the strongest military in the galaxy. Their ships could destroy planets. If they fell in 3 hours, what hope did anyone else have? Ambassador Lee Mina sat quietly in the human section. She was a small woman with dark hair and calm eyes. Around her, the other species argued and screamed. Some wanted to run to other galaxies. Others spoke of surrender. The humans just watched and listened. "What are these things?" demanded Prime Minister Vortex of the hegemony. His 4 arms waved in panic. "Where did they come from?" The head scientist, Dr. Quintal, stepped forward. Her tentacles shook as she spoke. "We call them the Devourers. They are older than our oldest records. Our ancestors found ruins of their feeding grounds 1,000,000 years ago. We thought they were extinct." "Extinct?" Veltar's silver eyes blazed. "They just ate the Centauri cluster. 50 billion people." "They sleep for millions of years," Dr. Quintal explained. "Something woke them up. They hunger for energy. Star energy, planet energy, life energy. They consume everything." The displays showed the truth. Massive creatures the size of moons floated through space. They looked like living ships with teeth and claws. Smaller creatures swarmed around them like angry insects. Where they passed, stars grew dim. Planets became empty rocks. "Our weapons do nothing," reported Admiral Zexmon. "Energy beams make them stronger. Missiles explode, but they heal instantly. They adapt to everything we throw at them." Fear filled the chamber. These were the greatest minds in the galaxy. They had conquered diseases, built machines that could think, and traveled between stars. But against the Devourers, they were helpless children. Veltar looked around the room. His people had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had never asked anyone for help. Pride was everything to the Vellani. But now pride meant nothing. "We need solutions," he said quietly. "Does anyone have ideas?" The silence stretched on. Then someone laughed. Not a happy laugh, but a bitter one. Everyone turned to look at Ambassador Lee Mina. She stood up slowly. Her small form looked tiny next to the giant aliens around her. "You want ideas?" she asked. "You have them. Run away, surrender, hide in other galaxies. Those are your ideas." "Then what do you suggest?" Veltar snapped. "What can your young species offer that we cannot?" Lee Mina smiled. It was not a warm smile. "You could ask us for help." The chamber erupted in angry voices. The humans were new to the galaxy. They had only been traveling between stars for 200 years. Their technology was crude. Their ships were ugly metal boxes compared to the elegant vessels of other species. "Help?" Admiral Zexmon laughed. "Human ships are barely faster than light. Your weapons are primitive explosives. What could you possibly do?" "That is for us to decide," Lee Mina said calmly. "The question is, are you asking?" Veltar felt tears of liquid silver run down his face. His people were dying. His beautiful worlds were becoming graveyards. Pride was a luxury he could no longer afford. He started, then stopped. The word stuck in his throat. "Say it," Lee Mina said softly. "Say the words." Veltar closed his eyes. When he opened them, his voice was steady. "We formally request military assistance from the Human Federation." "Request denied," Lee Mina said. The chamber gasped. Veltar stared at her in shock. What? You requested assistance. We don't assist. We solve problems. Lee Mina gathered her papers. If you want us to solve your devourer problem permanently, ask again. Use the right words. Veltar understood. This was not about pride anymore. This was about survival. He took a deep breath. We formally request that the Human Federation solve the devourer threat. Lee Mina nodded. Request accepted. We will send our fleet. How many ships? Asked General Kexra. Enough. What kind of weapons? The kind that work. When will they arrive? When they are ready. Lee Mina walked toward the door. Then she stopped and turned back. One more thing. You asked us to solve a problem. We will solve it our way. Some of you might not like our methods, but you will not interfere. Understood? No one answered. They just stared at the small human woman. I said, Understood? Her voice was harder now. Understood, Veltar whispered. Lee Mina smiled again. This time it was even colder than before. Good. Oh, and Council Prime? You might want to warn your people. When humans solve problems, we solve them permanently. Pray that you are ready for what we consider help. She walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the greatest leaders in the galaxy sat in confused silence. They had asked for help from the weakest military in their alliance, but something in Lee Mina's voice made them wonder if they had just made a terrible mistake. Outside the chamber, Lee Mina sent a single message to Earth. It was only 3 words long. Problem identified. Solve. Far away in human space, machines began to wake up. Ships that had been sleeping in hidden docks started to power up. Weapons that other species had never seen began to charge. The galaxy had asked for help. They were about to learn why humans were the only species that had never lost a war. On Valara Prime, the crystal towers stopped shaking. But now the silence felt worse than the alarms, because everyone knew that something terrible was coming. They just didn't know if it was coming for the Devourers or for them. Admiral Park Hyun stood on the observation deck of Station Titan. Around him, the darkness of space held secrets that other species would never imagine. For 50 years, humans had been building something out here in the empty void between stars, something the galaxy had never seen. The message from Ambassador Lee Mina was simple. 3 words that changed everything. Problem identified. Solve. Park Hyun was an old man now. His hair was gray and his face had scars from the Sol defense. Wars. He had fought pirates, rebels, and alien raiders, but he had never faced anything like the Devourers. Sir, said his aide, Lieutenant Cho Su. She was young and nervous. The council is asking how many ships we're sending. Tell them enough, Park Hyun replied. He touched a control panel. Wake them up. Across the station, lights began to turn on. Deep in the hidden shipyards, machines that had been sleeping for decades started to hum. The sound grew louder and louder until the entire station vibrated. Captain Kim Tae felt the vibration in his quarters. He had been waiting for this day for 10 years. His ship, the Soul's Fury, was finally going to fight. He put on his uniform and walked to the docking bay. The Soul's Fury was not like other ships in the galaxy, where alien vessels were smooth and curved. She was all angles and armor. Where they glowed with soft light, she seemed to eat the darkness around her. She was over 1 kilometer long and bristled with weapons that most species thought were illegal. Beautiful, isn't she? Said Dr. Yoon Hana. She was the chief weapons engineer and the creator of most of the ship's deadly systems. She's perfect, Kim Tae agreed. How long until the fleet is ready? 6 hours. The automation systems are bringing everything online. Around them, the shipyard was coming alive. Massive doors opened to reveal ships that had been hidden for decades. Heavy cruisers, with guns bigger than most alien destroyers, battleships that could crack moons, and destroyers so fast they could outrun most fighters. But the crown jewel was the Soul's Fury. She was the only ship of her class. The humans had built her to fight wars that might never come. Now that war was here. Commander O Sang was already aboard, checking his troops. The Crimson Battalion was humanity's elite fighting force. They wore black armor and carried weapons designed to kill anything that moved. O Sang himself was a quiet man who spoke softly and killed efficiently. "Men," he said to his soldiers, "we're going to fight something new. Something that eats planets and drinks starlight. Are you ready?" "Sir, yes, sir," they replied. "Good, because we're not just going to fight them. We're going to end them." On the bridge of the Soul's Fury, Kim Tae watched the fleet assemble. One by one, ships emerged from their hidden docks. First came the heavy cruisers, 500 of them, each one carrying enough firepower to flatten a city. Then the battleships, 50 massive vessels that could stand against entire fleets. "This is incredible," said Lieutenant Cho Soo. She had never seen so many warships in one place. "This is nothing," Kim Tae replied. "Wait until you see what they can do." The ships were different from anything the galaxy knew. Other species built their vessels to be fast and energy efficient. They used bright energy weapons and shields that glowed like rainbows. Their ships were works of art as much as tools of war. Human ships were purely functional. They were built to take damage and keep fighting. Their weapons were kinetic. They threw metal at enemies at incredible speeds. Their armor was thick and ugly. They looked like flying fortresses because that was exactly what they were. "Sir," reported the communications officer, "Admiral Park Hyun is requesting all captains report to the Soul's Fury for briefing." Soon the ship's main conference room was filled with human officers. They were all veterans of smaller conflicts. They had fought pirates and raiders, but none of them had faced anything like the Devourers. Admiral Park Hyun entered the room. His presence immediately commanded attention. This was a man who had never lost a battle. "Captains," he began, "the galaxy has asked us to solve a problem. The Devourers have awakened and are consuming everything in their path. Other species have tried to fight them and failed." He activated a holographic display showing the enemy. The creatures were terrifying. Living ships the size of asteroids, with teeth and claws and weapons that grew from their flesh. "They adapt to energy weapons," Park Hyun continued. "They heal from conventional damage. They seem unstoppable. Other species are panicking. Some are running away. Others are talking about surrender." The room was silent. The officers studied the display with professional interest. "Sir?" asked Captain Bae Jun, "what makes us think we can succeed where others have failed?" Park Hyun smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Because other species fight wars to win territory or resources or political advantage. We fight wars to end them permanently." He changed the display to show the human fleet. The numbers were staggering. 500 heavy cruisers, 50 battleships, 1 command dreadnought. Each ship carries enough nuclear weapons to sterilize a continent. Each ship has manufacturing facilities to produce more weapons during battle. Each ship is designed not just to fight, but to ensure the complete destruction of our enemies. The officers nodded. This was the human way of war. When humans fought, they fought to win absolutely. "The other species see the Devourers as an unstoppable force," Park Hyun said. "We see them as a problem to be solved. And humans are very good at solving problems." Captain Kim Tae raised his hand. "Orders, sir?" "Find them, study them, learn their weaknesses, then kill them all." Park Hyun's voice was calm and cold. "Every last one. I want this threat removed from the galaxy permanently." "What if the other species object to our methods?" asked Dr. Yoon Hana. "They asked for our help. They'll get it. Our way." Park Hyun stood up. "Gentlemen, ladies, we are about to teach the galaxy why humans are the only species that has never lost a war." Dismissed. The officers filed out to their ships. Within hours, the human fleet was moving. 551 warships slipped into hyperspace, heading toward the front lines. Behind them, Station Titan went dark again. But deep in its hidden factories, machines continued to work, building weapons, building ships, building tools of war that the galaxy had never imagined. The humans were coming. And they were bringing the kind of help that would solve the Devourer problem forever. The Calros system had been beautiful once. 3 planets with blue oceans and green continents. 12 billion people had called it home. Now it was a feeding ground for nightmares. Captain Kim Tae stood on the bridge of the Soul's Fury as the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace. What he saw made even his experienced crew gasp in horror. The star itself was dimmer. Something was drinking its light and energy. Around it, massive creatures floated like living asteroids. They had organic hulls covered in teeth and claws. Smaller creatures swarmed around them like angry wasps. "Mother of God," whispered Lieutenant Cho Su. "How many are there?" "Sensors count over 3,000 large bioships," reported the science officer. "Millions of smaller ones, and sir, they're all alive." The creatures moved with purpose. They weren't just random monsters. They had intelligence and organization. Some fed on the dying star while others stripped the planets bare. It was an efficient operation that had been perfected over millions of years. "Admiral Park Hyun is requesting all captains observe the current battle," said the communications officer. On the main screen, they watched a joint fleet of Vellani and Zorani ships engage the Devourers. It was a slaughter. The alien ships were beautiful and advanced. Their energy weapons could punch holes through moons. Their shields could stop nuclear warheads. Against any normal enemy, they would have been unstoppable. Against the Devourers, they were lunch. The creatures absorbed the energy attacks and grew stronger. When missiles hit them, they healed within seconds. Their own weapons were terrifying. Streams of acid that ate through armor, tentacles that grabbed ships and crushed them, and bioweapons that turned crews into more Devourers. "The Vellani flagship just went down," reported Tactical. "That's Admiral Vorkex's ship. 3,000 crew." Kim Tae watched as the massive alien vessel was pulled apart by tentacles thicker than buildings. The screams on the radio channels were horrible. "This is hopeless," said Commander Oh-Sang. "They can adapt to anything." "Not anything," said Dr. Yoon Hana quietly. She was studying the sensor readings with intense focus. "Lieutenant Cho Su, look at this." Cho Su joined her at the science station. "What am I looking at?" "The healing rates. When they get hit by energy weapons, they adapt immediately. When they get hit by missiles, they heal in seconds. But look at this." She pointed to a specific reading. "A Zorani ship just rammed one of the smaller creatures. Look at the damage pattern." Cho Su studied the data. "It took them 30 seconds to heal from the kinetic impact, much slower than the energy damage." "Exactly. They can adapt to energy and chemical attacks quickly. But physical trauma takes time to process." Admiral Park Hyun's voice came over the fleet channel. "All ships, fall back to observation distance. Let the alien fleets withdraw." The human ships moved away from the battle. They watched as the remaining Vellani and Zorani vessels retreated, in panic. Over half their ships were gone. The survivors were traumatized and broken. "Sir," asked Kim Tae, "why aren't we helping them?" "Because rushing in blind is how you lose wars," Park Hyun replied. "We're here to study first, then act." For 3 hours, the human fleet observed. They watched how the Devourers fed, how they moved, how they communicated. They recorded every detail of their biology and behavior. The creatures were ancient and efficient. They had perfected the art of consumption over millions of years, but they had one weakness that their previous enemies had never exploited. "They're used to fighting with energy weapons," Dr. Yoon Hana explained during the fleet briefing. "Every species in the galaxy uses energy-based technology, lasers, particle beams, plasma cannons. The Devourers have evolved to absorb and adapt to those attacks." "But we don't fight that way," said Captain Bae-jun. Exactly. We use kinetic weapons. Bullets, missiles, railguns. We throw metal at high speed. It's primitive by galactic standards, but it's something they haven't seen much of. Admiral Park Hyun nodded. They can heal from kinetic damage, but it takes time. And if we hit them hard enough, fast enough, they won't have time to adapt. What's the plan, sir? Asked Kim Tae. Park Hyun smiled coldly. We're going to do what humans do best. We're going to turn this into an engineering problem. He activated the fleet display. All ships will spread out across 3 systems. We're going to mine every asteroid, every dead planet, every piece of space debris we can find. Sir, Lieutenant Chosu looked confused. We're going to build weapons. Lots of weapons. More weapons than anyone has ever built before. And then we're going to use them all at once. Dr. Yoon Hana understood immediately. The Reaper Protocol. The what? Asked Commander Oh Sang. Something I've been working on for years. Dr. Yoon Hana explained. Self-replicating kinetic kill vehicles. Give them raw materials and they build copies of themselves. Each copy can then build more copies. How many can you make? Asked Park Hyun. Millions. Billions, if we have enough material. The bridge was silent as everyone absorbed this. The humans weren't planning to fight the Devourers ship to ship. They were planning to bury them under an avalanche of projectiles. This will take weeks to prepare, warned Captain Bae-jun. Good, said Park Hyun. Let the Devourers think they've won. Let them get comfortable. Let them gather in large groups to feed. When we hit them, I want them all in one place. The human fleet scattered across the nearby systems. Each ship became a mobile factory, turning asteroids into weapons. The manufacturing capability of human vessels was something the galaxy had never seen. Other species built ships to fight. Humans built ships to produce the tools to fight. As they worked, more reports came in. The Devourers were spreading, more worlds were falling, more fleets were being destroyed. The galaxy was panicking, but in the outer systems, human ships worked day and night, building, planning, preparing for something the galaxy had never seen. Sir, asked Lieutenant Chosu, what if this doesn't work? Admiral Park Hyun looked out at the stars where his ships were turning lifeless rocks into instruments of war. Then we'll try something else. Humans don't give up, Lieutenant. We solve problems, and the Devourers are just another problem to solve. In the distance, the glow of dying stars marked where the Devourers fed. They thought they had won. They thought nothing in this galaxy could stop them. They were about to learn why humans were the most dangerous species in the universe, not because they were strong or fast or smart, but because they never, ever quit. 3 weeks after the first contact, the galaxy watched in amazement and horror as humans transformed war into industry. Where other species saw empty space, humans saw resources. Every asteroid became raw material. Every dead moon became a factory. Every piece of space debris became ammunition for weapons the galaxy had never imagined. Captain Bae-jun floated in his engineering suit outside the heavy cruiser Incheon's Pride. Around him, massive mining ships tore apart a small asteroid. The rock was rich in iron and nickel, perfect for making kinetic projectiles. How many have we produced so far? He asked his chief engineer over the radio. 12 million Reaper units and counting, came the reply. Each one can build 10 more copies before it needs new materials. Bae-jun watched as the automated systems worked. Robots the size of cars crawled over the asteroid, breaking it down into useful metals. Other machines assembled those metals into sleek, deadly projectiles that looked like silver bullets. But these weren't normal bullets. Each Reaper unit had its own tiny computer brain and small thrusters. They could think, navigate, and build copies of themselves. Dr. Yoon Hana had created something that other species would call magic. On the Soul's Fury, Admiral Park Hyun reviewed the latest reports. The human fleet had spread across 4-star systems, turning each one into a weapons factory. His officers were amazed at what they had accomplished. "Sir," reported Captain Kim Tae, "our industrial output is beyond anything in galactic history. We're producing more weapons in a day than most species make in a year." "Good. What about intelligence on the enemy?" Captain Lim Yuri stepped forward. She commanded the Stealth Reconnaissance Division, ships so quiet they could sneak past Devourer sensors. "We've mapped their entire fleet structure. They're gathering in the Nexus system, feeding on the binary stars there." "How many?" "Over 50,000 bioships. They think they're safe because no fleet has ever been large enough to threaten them." Lim Yuri smiled grimly. "They don't understand human logistics." Park Hyun nodded. The Devourers were used to fighting. Species that built a few hundred ships and sent them into battle. They had never faced an enemy that could turn entire star systems into weapon factories. "What about boarding operations?" he asked Commander Osang. Osang had been busy training his troops on captured Devourer biomatter. "We've learned their weak points. The creatures have centralized nervous systems. Plant a nuclear charge in the right spot, and even a ship the size of a moon will die instantly." "Casualties?" "Heavy, but acceptable. My men are ready." Dr. Yoon. Hana entered the briefing room with a tablet full of new designs. "Admiral, I have something that might interest you." She activated a holographic display showing a new type of weapon. "I call it the Extinction Virus. It's a self-replicating nanomachine that targets Devourer biotechnology. Once it gets into their systems, it spreads and corrupts everything it touches." "How fast does it work?" "Fast enough. A single unit can infect an entire bioship in minutes. The ship becomes unusable and eventually dies." Park Hyun studied the design. It was elegant and terrifying. "Build as many as you can." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Galactic Council watched the human operations with growing concern. They had asked for help, but what they were seeing was beyond anything they had imagined. Ambassador Lee Mina sat in the council chambers as reports came in. The other species were starting to understand what human military doctrine really meant. "They've turned 4 star systems into weapons factories," reported General Kexera. "Their industrial capacity is impossible. How can such a young species build so much so quickly?" "Because they're not building for this war," Lee Mina explained calmly. "They built this capacity decades ago just in case. Humans always prepare for the worst possible conflict." Council Prime Veltar looked disturbed. "The reports say they're building weapons that can reproduce themselves. Is that true?" "Yes." That's terrifying. What if those weapons decide to target us?" Lee Mina's expression didn't change. "Then you should hope we consider you allies." The fear in the room was obvious. The galaxy was beginning to understand that humans didn't just fight wars, they engineered complete solutions to problems. On the outer rim of the Chronos system, Lieutenant Cho Su watched the latest batch of Reaper units being loaded onto transport ships. Each unit was beautiful in its simplicity, a metal cylinder with a computer brain and enough explosive power to punch through armor. "Ma'am," asked a young technician, "what happens to all these weapons after the war?" Cho Su had wondered the same thing. "I don't know, but I trust Admiral Park Hyun to make the right decision." The truth was more complex. Human military doctrine was built around the concept of overwhelming force. When humans went to war, they didn't fight to win battles. They fought to make sure the war never happened again. As the 4th week began, the industrial operation reached its peak. Every day, billions of new weapons rolled off the production lines. The human fleet had grown too as support ships arrived from the inner colonies. "Status report," demanded Park Hyun during the daily briefing. 15 billion Reaper units ready for deployment," reported Dr. Yoon Hana. 5 million extinction, virus packages, nuclear mines, gravity bombs, and kinetic artillery beyond counting. "Troop readiness?" "The Crimson Battalion is ready for boarding operations," said Commander Osang. "We've also trained the regular Marines in Devourer combat techniques." "Fleet status?" "All ships armed and ready," reported Kim Tae. "We have enough firepower to sterilize a dozen systems." Park Hyun looked around the room at his officers. They were good people who had spent months preparing for something horrible. "This is your last chance to raise objections. What we're about to do will change how the galaxy sees warfare forever." No one spoke. They all understood what was coming. "Very well. Signal all ships. We move to the Nexus system in 6 hours. Park Hyun stood up. "Gentlemen, ladies, we're about to teach the galaxy the difference between winning a war and solving a problem permanently." As the human fleet prepared to move, similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Other species watched and waited, not sure if they should be grateful or terrified. The humans had asked for a problem to solve. They had been given one. Now they were about to demonstrate why their species had never lost a war. In the Nexus system, the Devourers continued to feed on the binary stars, unaware that doom was approaching on the solar wind. They had consumed 1,000 species over the millennia. They thought themselves unstoppable. They were about to meet the first species that considered unstoppable just another engineering challenge to overcome. The Nexus system had become a feeding ground for gods of hunger. 50,000 Devourer bioships floated between the twin stars, growing fat on stellar energy. The largest was the Brood Mother, an ancient creature the size of a small moon, that had been alive since before humans learned to make fire. Admiral Park Hyun stood on the bridge of the Soul's Fury as the human fleet approached. Behind him, 500 heavy cruisers and 50 battleships moved in perfect formation. But the real weapons weren't the ships themselves. "Deployment status," he ordered. "All Reaper units are in position," reported Dr. Yoon Hana. 15 billion units spread across the system perimeter. They're invisible to Devourer sensors and waiting for activation. "Boarding teams?" "Ready?" said Commander Osang. His voice was calm, but his eyes were hard. "We've identified the primary targets. My teams know what to do." Captain Kim Tae watched the enemy through the tactical display. The Devourers moved like a living cloud, pulsing with alien intelligence. They had detected the human fleet but seemed unconcerned. Why should they worry? They had destroyed every fleet that had challenged them. "Sir?" asked Lieutenant Cho Su. "They're not even reacting to us. Should we be worried?" "No," Park Hyun replied. "They're about to learn why humans are different." The largest bioships began to move toward the human fleet. They came slowly, confidently, like predators approaching helpless prey. Energy fields crackled around their organic hulls. Weapon creatures extended from their sides like the stingers of giant wasps. "They're powering weapons," reported Tactical. "Let them," Park Hyun said calmly. "Captain Kim Tae, begin the demonstration." Kim Tae nodded and opened a channel to the lead Devourer bioship. He spoke in the common galactic language that the creatures had learned from their victims. "This is Captain Kim Tae of the human vessel Soul's Fury. You have consumed the last life you will ever take. Surrender now, or be destroyed." The response came as a wave of psychic laughter that made several crew members stumble. The Brood Mother's voice filled their minds like poison. "Little metal creatures," it said. "We have devoured 1,000 species. Your ships are toys. Your weapons are jokes. You will feed us well." "I tried to be polite," Kim Tae said to his crew. "Admiral, permission to begin extermination protocol?" "Granted. Show them what humans consider a proportional response." Kim Tae's fingers moved across his control panel. Across the system, 15 billion Reaper units came online at once. The Devourers had no warning. One moment, they were moving confidently toward the human fleet. The next moment, space around them exploded with silver death. The Reaper units moved faster than anything biological could react. They had been scattered across the system like invisible mines, waiting for activation. Now they swarmed toward their targets in streams of metal that looked like liquid mercury. Each unit was small, no bigger than a human finger. But they moved at significant fractions of light speed. And they had been designed for one purpose: to punch through organic armor and explode inside their targets. The first wave hit the smaller bioships like a metal storm. Thousands of creatures that had survived for millennia died in seconds as the Reapers tore through their hulls and detonated inside their bodies. But the humans weren't done. As the surviving Devourers tried to adapt to the kinetic attack, Dr. Yoon Hana activated the second phase. "Extinction virus deployed," she reported. Millions of nanomachines, invisible to Devourer senses, spread through the enemy fleet. They were designed to corrupt biotechnology, turning the creatures' own bodies against them. Bioships began to convulse as their nervous systems were rewritten by alien code. "Third phase," ordered Park Hyun. Captain Lim Yuri's stealth ships, which had been hiding throughout the system, suddenly appeared inside the Devourer formation. They had been waiting for hours, completely undetected for this moment. Each stealth ship carried nuclear mines, thousands of them. They deployed their deadly cargo directly into the enemy fleet, before vanishing again into the darkness. The nuclear detonations lit up the system like a new constellation. But these weren't random explosions. Human targeting computers had calculated the exact placement needed to cause maximum damage to biological structures. "Boarding operations, go!" commanded Oh Sang. This was the most dangerous part. While the Devourers were reeling from the triple attack, human assault ships dove into the chaos. They targeted the largest bioships, the ones that controlled the smaller creatures. Oh Sang led the assault on the brood mother himself. His team crashed through the creature's organic hull in armored pods, then fought their way through corridors made of living flesh. The interior was a nightmare of teeth and tentacles and eyes that watched from the walls. "Nuclear charges planted," he reported over the radio. His voice was steady despite the horror around him. "Extraction in 30 seconds. Similar reports came from other teams throughout the fleet. The humans had identified the command creatures and were planting bombs directly in their nervous centers. It was brutal, efficient, and absolutely ruthless. But the Devourers weren't helpless. The brood mother began to fight back with weapons that defied understanding. Gravity waves tried to crush the human ships. Bioplasma turned space itself into acid. Psychic screams attempted to drive human crews insane. "Shields holding," reported Kim Tae as his ship bucked under the assault. "Return fire with main batteries." The Soul's Fury's weapons were the pinnacle of human military engineering. Railguns that could accelerate projectiles to incredible speeds. Particle beams that could cut through planetary cores. Nuclear torpedoes that burned hotter than stars. All of it focused on a single target: the brood mother. The ancient creature had survived for millions of years, but it had never faced anything like human firepower. The concentrated attack began, to tear through its massive bulk, revealing the pulsing organs inside. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Cho Soo, "the brood mother is trying to escape." "Not today," Park Hyun said grimly. "All ships, focus fire. I want that thing dead." The battle raged for 6 hours. It wasn't really a battle, it was an execution. The humans had planned every detail, prepared for every contingency, and brought overwhelming force to bear on their enemies. When it was over, the Nexus system was quiet. 50,000 bioships floated dead in space. The twin stars burned alone, no longer being drained by alien parasites. "Casualty report," ordered Park Hyun. 17 ships lost, 4,000 crew, reported Kim Tae. The enemy suffered total casualties. "Sir," asked Dr. Yoon Hana, "what about the Reaper units still in the system?" Park Hyun considered this. Billions of self-replicating weapons were still active, still building copies of themselves from the wreckage of dead bioships. "Transmit the shutdown codes. We don't need them anymore." As the Reaper units powered down, human salvage ships moved in to study the dead devourers. They would learn everything they could from the corpses, ensuring that if similar creatures ever appeared again, humanity would be ready. "Admiral," said Commander Osang, "what do we do with the bodies?" Park Hyun looked at the drifting remains of creatures that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years. "Burn them, all of them. I want nothing left that could possibly regenerate." The human fleet spent 3 days systematically destroying every trace of devourer biotechnology. When they were finished, the Nexus system contained nothing but sterile metal and radiation. Across the galaxy, other species watched the aftermath in stunned silence. The humans had done more than win a battle. They had committed genocide with industrial efficiency and scientific precision. The devourer threat was over. Forever. But now the galaxy faced a new question. What do you do when your saviors are more terrifying than the monsters they destroyed? 3 months after the Battle of Nexus, the galaxy was safe but not at peace. The crystal towers of Valara Prime gleamed in the sunlight of a star that no longer dimmed with alien hunger. But in the Grand Council chamber, fear had replaced gratitude. Council. Prime Veltar stood before a holographic display showing the aftermath of human intervention. Where the Devourer fleet had once fed, there was now only empty space and radiation. Not a single bioship had been left intact, not even fragments that could regenerate. "The threat level assessment is complete," reported Dr. Quintal. Her tentacles shook as she spoke. "The Devourers are extinct, completely extinct. Every genetic sample, every bioship, every spawning ground, all destroyed." The council chamber was silent. They had asked for help against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. They had received help, the kind of help that eliminated problems forever. "How many systems did the humans sterilize?" asked Admiral Zexmon. 12, replied Dr. Quintal. Every world the Devourers had touched. Every asteroid where they might have left genetic material. The humans used something they called Scorched Space Protocol. General Kexra spoke up. "I've studied their battle recordings. They didn't just fight the Devourers. They committed systematic extermination. They hunted down every last creature across 50 star systems. And it worked," Veltar said quietly. "The galaxy is safe." "But at what cost?" demanded Prime Minister Vortex. "The humans demonstrated industrial capacity beyond our understanding, weapons we've never seen, tactics that border on the illegal." Ambassador Lee Mina sat in her usual place, listening to the debate with calm eyes. She had been expecting this conversation for months. "Ambassador," Veltar said, "your fleet has completed its mission. The Galactic Council formally thanks the Human Federation for its assistance." "You're welcome," Lee Mina replied simply. "However," Veltar continued, "we have concerns about human military doctrine. The thoroughness of your response was unexpected." Lee Mina smiled. It was not a warm expression. "You asked us to solve the Devourer problem. We solved it. Permanently." "Yes, but the methods were necessary," Lee Mina interrupted. "The Devourers had regeneration capabilities, adaptation mechanisms, distributed consciousness. Half measures would have meant they could return in 100 years, or 1,000 years. We eliminated that possibility." Admiral Zexmon leaned forward. "Your species built 15 billion self-replicating weapons in 1 month. That industrial capacity could conquer the galaxy." "Could," Lee Mina agreed, "but we won't. Conquest isn't profitable. Trade is profitable. Peace is profitable. Dead customers don't buy human products." The logic was sound, but the fear remained. The humans had revealed capabilities that dwarfed every other species combined. Their ships could outproduce entire worlds. Their weapons could kill anything. Their tactics were brutally effective. "What happens to your fleet now?" asked Veltar. Admiral Park Hyun is retiring. Most of the ships will return to reserve status. The weapons will be stored or recycled. Lee Mina gathered her papers. The threat is over. We have no reason to maintain such a large force. As she prepared to leave, Veltar asked the question that had been haunting the council. Ambassador, are we safe from you? Lee Mina paused at the door. That depends. Do you plan to become a threat that needs solving? The silence that followed her departure was heavy with implications. Far from Valara Prime, Admiral Park Hyun stood on the observation deck of the Soul's Fury one last time. Through the transparent aluminum, he could see the human fleet preparing to return home. The crisis was over, but he felt no satisfaction. Sir, said Captain Kim Tae, the final reports are complete. 51,000 Devourer bioships confirmed, destroyed. 0 survivors, 0 regeneration sites. The species is extinct. Good, Park Hyun said quietly. What about our casualties? Final count. 4,217 dead, 12,000 wounded, 17 ships lost. Kim Tae paused. Sir, the crew is asking about the memorial service. Schedule it for when we reach Earth. Those people died protecting the galaxy. They deserve to be remembered. Dr. Yoon Hana approached them, carrying a data pad. Admiral, I have the weapons inventory report. Summary. All nuclear devices accounted for. All Reaper units shut down and recovered. All extinction virus samples secured. Nothing left behind that could cause problems. Park Hyun nodded. Human. Military doctrine was clear about such things. You didn't leave dangerous weapons lying around for other species to find and study. What about the research data? He asked. The Devourer biological samples and technology analysis are classified above Galactic Council level. Only Earth Command will have access. Dr. Yoon Hana hesitated. Sir, should we be worried about the political situation? You mean the fact that the galaxy now fears us more than they respect us? Park Hyun sighed. That was inevitable. When you demonstrate the ability to commit genocide with industrial efficiency, people get nervous. Commander Oh Sang joined the group. His face was grim. Sir, I've been monitoring galactic communications. Some species are discussing containment protocols for humanity. Let them talk, Park Hyun said. Fear keeps the peace better than treaties. As long as they're afraid of us, they won't start wars we'd have to finish. Captain Lim Yuri approached from the Stealth Operations Center. Admiral, my reconnaissance ships have detected increased military activity near human space. Nothing threatening yet, but they're definitely keeping an eye on us. Standard procedure, Park Hyun replied. We'd do the same thing. The question is whether they're smart enough to understand the lesson. What lesson? Asked Kim Tae. That humans don't start wars. We finish them. As the human fleet prepared to depart, similar conversations were happening throughout the galaxy. Military leaders studied human tactics. Politicians debated new alliance structures. Scientists tried to understand weapons that shouldn't have been possible. On Zorani Prime, Fleet Commander Hextel reviewed the battle recordings for the 100th time. They didn't fight like any species we know, she told her staff. Energy weapons are elegant, precise, efficient. Human weapons are crude, brutal, overwhelming. But effective, pointed out her aide. Too effective. They didn't just defeat the Devourers. They eliminated them so thoroughly that future archaeologists won't even find fossils. Meanwhile, on Earth, the returning fleet was greeted with celebration and concern. The human government had spent months preparing for this moment. President Chen Wei met with Admiral Park Hyun in private. The galactic situation is delicate, she said. Half the species want to give us medals. The other half want to build walls to keep us out. I'm not surprised, Park Hyun replied. We showed them something they weren't ready to see. Which was? What happens when an entire species approaches war as an engineering problem to be solved? Permanently. President Chen considered this. The Joint Chiefs want to know if we should increase our defensive posture. No. That would only confirm their fears. We should do the opposite. Reduce the fleet. Focus on trade and diplomacy. Let them see that we're not conquerors. And if they attack us anyway? Park Hyun's smile was cold. Then they'll learn why the Devourers are extinct. Back on Valara Prime, Council Prime Veltar met privately with Ambassador Lee Mina one final time before her departure. You saved us, he said simply. We solved your problem, she corrected. Is there a difference? Lee Mina looked out at the stars where her people's ships were already departing. Yes. Saving you would have meant protecting you from the Devourers. Solving your problem meant making sure the Devourers could never threaten anyone again. And if we become a problem, then we'll solve that too. She stood to leave, then paused. Council Prime, let me give you some advice. Humans are very good neighbors. We're peaceful, we trade fairly, and we keep our word. But we're also very good at solving problems permanently. Which kind of neighbor we are depends entirely on you, as... Her ship departed Valara Prime. Lee Mina reflected on the situation. The galaxy was safe from the Devourers, but now it had to live with the knowledge that humans existed. A species that could build weapons by the billion, execute military operations with terrifying precision, and eliminate threats so completely that they became extinct. The price of human help was simple. The galaxy would never feel completely safe again. Because now they knew what their peaceful trading partners were truly capable of when someone made the mistake of asking them to solve a problem. In the depths of space, the Soul's Fury and her escorts headed home. Behind them, the galaxy tried to figure out what to do with neighbors who considered extinction just another tool of diplomacy. The Devourer crisis was over. The human question had just begun.